I never thought a simple message could change everything.
It started innocently enough. A text from Russell, my best friend's ex, asking for advice. It seemed harmless at first. He was struggling with his breakup with Megan, my best friend, and I thought I was just being a supportive friend, offering a little guidance. But I should have known better. In hindsight, I can see how naive I was. I never imagined his words, his questions, would become a web that pulled me deeper and deeper until I couldn't escape. It didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary, just a man trying to understand where his relationship with Megan had gone wrong. At least, that's what I convinced myself of. I had no idea he was already obsessing over me. The way his messages started to shift, the way he began asking personal questions about my life, my values, my thoughts on relationships, it all felt innocent enough at first. But with every new message, I felt more and more uncomfortable. It didn't take long before I realized something was wrong. He wasn't just talking to me for advice. He was sizing me up, comparing me to Megan, trying to find a way into my life. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came later, when Megan found out. When she realized that Russell's obsession with me wasn't new, that it had been simmering beneath the surface during their entire relationship. And now, here I was, stuck in the middle, caught between a friendship I thought was unbreakable and a man who had manipulated his way into my life in ways I never imagined. I didn't expect the aftermath to be so devastating, but it was. And now, with everything I thought I knew about loyalty, friendship, and trust shattered, I wonder how we ever got here in the first place. My name is Lauren Hayes, and I've known Megan since we were 14. We met at summer camp, and it was as if we'd known each other for years. There was an instant connection, a bond forged through shared laughter, late-night talks, and a mutual understanding that we were, for all intents and purposes, each other's person. We had an unspoken rule between us, a sort of pact, one we formed on the very first night we hung out. We would always choose each other first. It was a silly inside joke that started with a movie about a group of friends who had 3 seconds to decide if they trusted someone. For us, it became the thing we said when life felt uncertain. 03. A symbol of trust, of unwavering support. Growing up together, we'd been through everything. First boyfriends, first heartbreaks, family drama, the awkward stages of figuring out who we were. We shared our dreams, our doubts, our secrets. I was there when she lost her father to cancer, and she was there when I failed my first college exam. Our friendship was the type you see in movies, the one everyone wishes they had. Megan met Russell about 2 years ago, and at first I didn't think much of it. He was charming, a little too smooth for my taste, but if she was happy, I didn't want to rain on her parade. Russell was the kind of guy who showed up at every party, always in the middle of the crowd, but there was something off about him. He never seemed to have real friends, just acquaintances who didn't see past his facade. He was the type to talk endlessly about himself, always bringing up his latest achievements, his ambitions, and the people he thought would help him climb the ladder. I never really liked him. There, I said it. Megan was blind to it, though. She saw the good in him, the way he was able to make her laugh and feel important. She would talk about their future together, about how he was the one, and I couldn't help but feel that her idea of the one was a little more idealized than it should have been. But I kept my mouth shut. She was happy, and I didn't want to ruin that for her. Then, about a year into their relationship, things started to shift. Megan's mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and everything changed. Megan took on the role of caregiver, and it started to drain her. Her mom refused to go into assisted living, so Megan quit her job to care for her full time. It was a lot for her to handle, and I could see the toll it was taking on her. Around this time, Russell's behavior also started to change. He became more distant, and I could see how his words affected Megan. He was constantly comparing her to other women, criticizing her for being too sensitive, for not being as cultured or ambitious as the women he admired. It wasn't blatant at first, but I could see it in the way he spoke to her, in the way he made her question herself. Every time they fought, he made her feel small, as if she was never enough. I wanted to tell her to leave him, but I knew she wasn't ready to hear it. I had always been the one she turned to for support, but it felt like even our connection was fraying at the edges. I didn't know it then, but the seeds of doubt were already planted in my mind. I never thought it would lead to this. That Russell, the man I didn't trust, would somehow become the one who would tear us apart. As time went on, the cracks in Megan and Russell's relationship began to show more. They'd fight more frequently, sometimes about the smallest things, but it was clear that the foundation they'd built together was starting to crumble. It wasn't just the stress of her mother's illness, though that certainly weighed heavily on Megan. It was more than that. There were moments when I saw how Russell's criticism slowly chipped away at her self-esteem, when I watched her shrink under his disapproving gaze. But it wasn't just the comments about her ambition or her cultural knowledge. Those things were easier to ignore. It was the subtle, insidious ways he made her doubt her worth, doubt her place in his life. I started noticing how often he was absent, both physically and emotionally. He would show up late to events we'd planned, leaving Megan to fend for herself. He'd cancel on her last minute, always with an excuse. He stopped supporting her the way he once did, especially after she had to quit her job to care for her mom. Instead of stepping up to help, he seemed to retreat further into himself, leaving her to handle everything on her own. I was there for her. She was my best friend, after all. But slowly, even the strong bond between us began to feel stretched thin. Megan was changing. She was tired all the time, overwhelmed by the burden of caring for her mother. And it wasn't just physically draining her, it was wearing on her emotionally. She'd come over to my apartment for coffee, and instead of talking about her day, she'd just stare blankly at the walls, lost in her thoughts. I didn't know how to help anymore. She wasn't the Megan I knew, bright, full of life, and always up for an adventure. Now she was quiet, withdrawn, as if the weight of the world was pressing down on her shoulders. Meanwhile, Russell seemed to be getting more distant and, strangely, more interested in me. It started small, innocent questions here and there, like asking for advice about relationships or how I managed to juggle work and personal life. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought he just needed someone to talk to since Megan was increasingly unavailable. But the questions began to feel personal, invasive even. He would ask what I valued in a partner, what qualities I thought were important in a relationship. I would answer, thinking I was just being helpful, offering advice as a friend. But the more I responded, the more I noticed his subtle attempts to draw me in, to get closer. There were times when I felt uncomfortable, but I dismissed it. I convinced myself I was overthinking things. After all, he was Megan's boyfriend, and I didn't want to cause trouble. But the truth was that I was starting to feel something I shouldn't. It wasn't romantic, but it was an unsettling feeling, a tension in the air whenever Russell and I were alone, a growing sense of unease that I couldn't shake. Megan had always been the center of my life, my best friend. But as Russell's messages became more frequent, as he began to reach out to me more and more, I found myself caught in an emotional tug-of-war. I didn't want to hurt Megan, but I couldn't ignore the fact that I felt like he was pulling me into something I didn't understand. And all the while, she was drifting away from me, more focused on Russell and his needs than her own, more focused on his criticisms than the love and friendship she'd always had with me. I started to feel guilty. It wasn't even about the messages anymore. It was about everything I was seeing, everything I was witnessing. Megan's slow unraveling, her frustration, her confusion, her growing sense of inadequacy. I tried to talk to her about it, tried to bring up the fact that I didn't think Russell was treating her right, but she'd brush me off every time. "I'm fine," she'd say. "It's just a phase." But I could see it in her eyes, the doubt, the insecurity, the way she wasn't the same person she used to be. And I felt helpless, watching her deteriorate while Russell seemed to get more comfortable in his role as the person who held the power, who made her question everything she was. But still, the real conflict, the real danger, had yet to show its face. I had no idea how much Russell's obsession with me would soon cost me. The first sign that things had truly gone wrong came when Megan showed me her phone. It was an ordinary night. Megan and I were at my apartment, flipping through Netflix, trying to find something to watch while sipping our usual wine. We were catching up, but there was an unease between us, something I couldn't quite place. I could tell Megan was on edge. She'd been quieter than usual, distracted. Her phone kept buzzing, but she hadn't looked at it once. Finally, she glanced down, and her face drained of color. She picked up the phone, swiped to unlock it, and there it was, a message from her friend Trish, asking why Russell had been posting photos from the places Megan and I went to together. It wasn't just one or two spots. It was a handful of familiar places. Our favorite coffee shop, the bookstore we visited every Saturday, the park where I often walked my dog. Megan looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, and I could see the immediate suspicion in her gaze. "Have you noticed him around?" she asked, her voice tight, the air suddenly thick with tension.
I shook my head, confused.
No, I haven't seen him. Maybe he's just at those places by coincidence, I said, though my voice faltered. I wasn't sure anymore. But as Megan pulled up Russell's social media, everything fell into place. He'd been posting pictures of himself at the coffee shop, the park, the bookstore, places that were so familiar to us, but never to him. He'd even checked in at the gym we both went to. I felt a cold dread seep through me. This wasn't random. This wasn't just coincidence. Megan looked at me, her expression hardening. "Why didn't you tell me he was contacting you?" she asked, her voice quiet but laced with hurt. My heart dropped into my stomach. I had kept it from her. I had kept talking to Russell, trying to be the good friend, the one who would help him make sense of his breakup. But now, seeing the evidence of his behavior, I realized just how much I had misjudged the situation. I sat there in silence, watching as Megan scrolled through our entire conversation history, her fingers trembling as she went through each text, each message. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the sound of her breathing, fast and shallow. I could feel the walls closing in on me.
When she finished scrolling, she placed my phone down on the table with a soft thud. Her eyes never left mine as she asked, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything?"
"I didn't think it mattered," I replied, my voice shaky. "I thought he just needed closure, and I thought it was harmless." Megan stood up, pacing across the room. "Closure?" she asked bitterly. "Lauren, this isn't closure. He was using you. He was obsessed with you the whole time we were together, and you let him in. You let him in, and now, here we are." Her words hit me like a slap to the face. I hadn't seen it, not at first, but now, with the evidence laid out in front of me, I understood. Russell hadn't been trying to move on from Megan. He'd been using their breakup as an opportunity to get closer to me, to plant seeds of doubt, to manipulate his way into my life. Megan's face contorted in pain as she spoke again. "He started asking me why I couldn't be more like you. He kept saying things like, 'Lauren does this,' or 'Lauren thinks that,' and it made me feel like I was always competing against you. But I never told you. I didn't want you to think I was being ridiculous. And now I'm sitting here wondering if this whole time I've been living with someone who never wanted me at all."
The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Russell had been using their relationship as a stepping stone to get closer to me, and Megan had been the one caught in the middle. I felt guilty. I felt responsible.
Megan wasn't done. And the worst part? You knew all of this, Lauren, and you kept talking to him. You kept entertaining him. You let him keep coming back for more, and you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me until it was too late. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could I explain myself? How could I justify the fact that I had let this happen? I had failed her. I had failed my best friend. Megan's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment I saw the hurt in them more clearly than I'd ever seen it before. She shook her head, stepping back. "I need some time to think. I don't know if I can trust you anymore." And just like that, my world tilted on its axis. The person I had always counted on, the person who had always been there for me, was slipping away, and I couldn't stop it. I watched as she walked out of my apartment, leaving me with the crushing weight of my mistakes. The night after Megan left my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, replaying everything in my mind. Every conversation with Russell, every text message, every subtle shift in his behavior that I had dismissed as nothing. My mind kept returning to the same question. How had I let this happen? How had I allowed myself to become part of this mess, a mess I never should have been in? Megan had trusted me with everything. We had shared everything, our fears, our hopes, our deepest insecurities, and I had betrayed her. I hadn't just kept a secret. I had let Russell manipulate me into becoming part of something I shouldn't have been. I kept thinking back to the early messages, the ones where he had asked me about relationships, about what qualities I valued. I had been so naive, so eager to be helpful, to be the good friend. But now it was clear. Russell hadn't been seeking advice. He had been testing the waters, measuring me up, seeing how I would respond, and I had given him everything he needed to continue his plan. I tossed and turned in bed, feeling like I was suffocating. The guilt was overwhelming. I kept thinking, if only I had been honest with Megan from the start. If only I had told her about those first few messages. Maybe things wouldn't have escalated this far. Maybe she wouldn't have found out like this in the worst way possible. And yet, a part of me still felt trapped in the situation, like there was no way to undo the damage that had been done. Megan's hurt was too deep, too raw, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. I wasn't sure if I could. The next morning, I tried to call her. I left a message telling her how sorry I was, telling her I never meant to hurt her, but the voicemail went unanswered. I tried again that evening, and again the following day. Nothing. The silence between us was suffocating. It was as if she had shut herself off from me completely. A few days later, I received a message from Russell. It was the first time I had heard from him since Megan had discovered everything. The message was long, rambling, apologetic. He said he didn't understand why I was shutting him out. He said we had a connection and that I was throwing it away because of Megan's jealousy. He tried to make it sound like I was the one being unreasonable, that I was overreacting by cutting him off. He claimed that Megan had always been insecure and couldn't handle him having female friends. The message made my skin crawl. I couldn't believe I had ever allowed myself to think this man was someone I could trust. He was trying to manipulate me once again, trying to play the victim when all along he had been the one orchestrating everything. I blocked him immediately, but the damage had already been done. As the days passed, I couldn't help but feel like I was losing everything. Megan was slipping further away from me, and Russell's words kept echoing in my head. I kept wondering if maybe I was the one to blame for all of this. If I had just stayed out of it, if I had kept my distance from him, maybe I could have saved our friendship. But deep down, I knew I was wrong. I had allowed Russell to manipulate me, and I had let it go on for too long. I had allowed it to affect my relationship with Megan, and now there was no way to go back. I had made my choices, and I had to face the consequences. I tried to reach out to Megan again, but this time I sent her everything. The screenshots, the messages, the full story. I wanted her to see the truth, to know that I had never intended to hurt her. I wanted her to know that I was just as much a victim in this as she was, but I couldn't find the right words to explain it. I didn't know how to undo the damage I had caused. When I finally got a response from her, it wasn't what I had hoped for. "I believe you," she said, "but I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore." And that was it. The friendship that had been so solid, so unbreakable, had fractured beyond repair. I couldn't fix it. No amount of apologies, no amount of explanations could bring back the trust that had been shattered. The days following Megan's message were a blur. I tried to keep myself busy, going through the motions of life, work, errands, even small social gatherings, but nothing felt right. The guilt weighed on me like a stone lodged in my chest, and every conversation felt hollow. The silence between Megan and me stretched on, unbearable and thick. I tried calling her again and again, but each time I was met with her voicemail. She was shutting me out completely, and I didn't know how to handle it. A week after the fallout, things took an unexpected turn. I was at home, sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my phone. I had just received a text from a number I didn't recognize. At first, I assumed it was a wrong number, but then I saw the name, Trish. Trish was one of Megan's closest friends, and I knew that if she was reaching out to me, it meant things had reached another level. I opened the message, feeling my stomach tighten. "Lauren," it read, "I need to talk to you. This has gone way too far. Megan is heartbroken, and I think you need to know something." I felt a rush of panic. I read the message over and over, not sure what to expect. I quickly replied, "What's going on? Is Megan okay?" The response came in seconds, but the words hit me hard. "She's not okay, Lauren. She's having a hard time with everything. But it's not just about you and Russell. It's about her own feelings of inadequacy. She's feeling like she's lost everything. And now she's pushing you away because she doesn't know who she can trust anymore. It's breaking her." Her words sank in, and for a moment, I sat there, numb. I hadn't realized how deep Megan's pain ran. She wasn't just upset about Russell's betrayal or the fact that I'd kept secrets from her. She was questioning her entire sense of self-worth, all because of the way Russell had manipulated her. And now, because of my involvement, she felt like she was losing me, too. I stared at the message for a long time, my heart aching for her. I knew I had to do something to fix it, to show her that I hadn't meant to hurt her. But what could I do now? The trust was gone. The damage had been done. A few hours later, another message came, this time from Megan herself. My heart skipped a beat as I read her words. "I don't know what to do anymore, Lauren. I feel like I'm being pulled in a million directions and I can't think clearly. Russell has destroyed everything. I don't know who I am without him, and now I don't even know who you are. You were supposed to be my person, but everything's a mess, and I'm scared of losing what we had. I just need space to think." I read the message several times, feeling the weight of her words settle heavily on my chest. It was as if she was saying goodbye, but without actually saying it. I knew she needed time, but time didn't feel like something I had. I had lost her once, and now I was at risk of losing her for good. The next few days were a whirlwind of uncertainty. I couldn't stop thinking about everything Megan had said, and I couldn't escape the feeling that I had made everything worse by not being upfront from the beginning. It wasn't just Russell's fault. I had played a part in this, and I had to own up to it. I needed to fix this before I lost her for good. I reached out to Trish, hoping for some advice, some clarity on what to do next. She was someone Megan trusted, someone who understood the weight of the situation better than I did. "Lauren," Trish said when she called me back, her voice quiet and serious, "you need to understand something. Megan's not just angry with you. She's angry with herself. She feels betrayed by Russell, and now she feels betrayed by you. She thought she could trust both of you, and now she doesn't know who she can trust at all." Her words stung, but they were the truth. Megan was so wrapped up in her own hurt and confusion that she couldn't see the bigger picture. She didn't realize that Russell had been playing both of us. He had been manipulating the situation from the start, using his influence over Megan to create a wedge between us. And now that wedge was too wide for her to see past. Trish continued, "You need to give her time, but you also need to show her that you're here, that you're not going anywhere. But don't expect everything to heal right away. She's going through something really hard, and she's going to need space to process it all." I agreed, though I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. How could I give her space when I felt like I was losing her with every passing minute? But I had no choice. If I truly wanted to save our friendship, I had to give her the time she needed. I couldn't rush her healing. But things didn't stay quiet for long. It wasn't just Megan's silence that kept me on edge. It was Russell's constant presence in my life, even from a distance. He had started showing up again, not in person, but through his endless messages and fake social media accounts. The messages were starting to get desperate. "You're making a mistake, Lauren," he wrote in one. "We can make this work. You just need to trust me." I couldn't believe he still had the audacity to reach out, to act like everything was okay when it was clear that everything had fallen apart because of him. But that wasn't all. He started telling people that I was the one leading him on, that I was the one who had pushed him to act the way he did. And his lies were spreading. I didn't know what to do anymore. Megan had distanced herself from me, and Russell's manipulation was only making things worse. I began to feel like a pawn in a game I didn't understand, and every time I tried to fight back, the situation grew more complicated. It was one of those nights when everything felt too heavy. My phone buzzed, and I saw Russell's name once again. I had blocked him on every platform, but somehow he'd found a way to get through. New accounts, new messages, new lies. Every time I thought I was moving on, every time I convinced myself that things might start getting better, Russell would appear like a shadow, looming over me, refusing to let go. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen, and I felt the weight of it all crash down on me. I had lost Megan. I had let Russell manipulate me, and now our friendship was beyond repair. My thoughts kept spiraling, repeating over and over, how did I let this happen? I hadn't been able to sleep for days. It wasn't just the anxiety of dealing with Russell's constant presence. It was the suffocating feeling that I had failed Megan. The guilt gnawed at me, digging deeper with every passing hour. I kept thinking back to the small moments when I could have stopped this, when I could have told Megan what was happening, when I could have distanced myself from Russell instead of entertaining his messages. But I hadn't. And now there was no going back. The worst part was that Megan had believed in me. She trusted me with everything. We had grown up together. We had shared every moment, every dream. And now, because of my actions, I had lost her. The bond we shared felt shattered, like a mirror broken into 1,000 pieces. And no matter how much I tried to glue it back together, the cracks remained, each one reminding me of what I had done. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Russell. I opened it, though part of me knew I shouldn't. His words dripped with self-pity, each sentence designed to make me feel sorry for him, to make me question everything. "I'm sorry for everything, Lauren," he wrote. "I just wanted to find someone who understood me. I don't know why things got so messy, but I never meant for it to be like this. You and I are meant to be together. I just need you to see that." I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't an apology. This wasn't about understanding or closure. It was just another attempt to reel me back in, another attempt to manipulate me into feeling like I owed him something. But I couldn't let him control me anymore. I had already lost too much. I put my phone down, the cold weight of it sinking into the pit of my stomach. I realized then how far gone I truly was, how deeply Russell's influence had taken root in my life. The guilt, the self-doubt, the constant second-guessing. I had let him control not just Megan, but me too. I had let him draw me into a mess I never should have been a part of. The tears started to fall, slow and steady, as I sat there alone in the dark. I felt a crushing loneliness I hadn't experienced before. It wasn't just that I had lost Megan, it was that I had lost myself in all of this. I had let someone else's manipulations destroy everything I cared about, and now I didn't know who I was anymore. The next day, things only got worse. Megan didn't respond to my messages, not that I expected her to, but what made it even worse was that I heard through Trish that Megan was having a hard time even looking at me. She hadn't directly said it, but Trish told me that Megan felt so betrayed by everything that had happened that she wasn't sure if she could ever trust me again.
I couldn't blame her. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. I had been the one to entertain Russell's messages. I had been the one to keep the secrets. And now there was no way to undo any of it. Megan was gone. The friendship I thought would last forever was shattered. And the worst part? I couldn't even blame anyone but myself. I tried to reach out to her again, but it felt pointless. I knew what her response would be. Another silence, another wall. I felt trapped in this never-ending cycle of regret and guilt. And no matter what I did, there was no way to break free. It felt like I was drowning in the aftermath of everything that had happened. The silence between Megan and me, the constant messages from Russell, the endless guilt. It was all too much to bear. But it wasn't until a chance encounter, one that I could never have anticipated, that I began to see a sliver of light in the overwhelming darkness. It was a Saturday morning, a few weeks after Megan had asked for space. I had been sticking to my routine, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but nothing felt right. As I walked through the local grocery store, head down, focusing on the task at hand, I felt a sudden chill crawl down my spine. When I looked up, my heart stopped. Megan was standing at the checkout counter. She hadn't seen me yet, but I had seen her, her face tired, her posture slumped, as if she was carrying a weight much heavier than the bag in her hand. She looked different, more distant than I had remembered. It hurt to see her like this, but at the same time, it felt like a small flicker of hope. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to rush over to her, to apologize again, to beg for forgiveness, but my legs wouldn't move. The fear of pushing her away even further kept me rooted in place. Then, before I could convince myself to turn and leave, she looked up. Our eyes met across the aisle, and for a moment, everything stopped. The noise of the store faded away, leaving just the two of us in a silent confrontation. She didn't say anything at first, but her eyes were softer than they had been the last time we spoke. There was no anger, no accusation, just a raw, painful vulnerability that broke my heart.
"I didn't think I'd see you here," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper.
I hesitated. What could I say? There were so many things I wanted to tell her, so many apologies I needed to make, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I just said, "I'm sorry, Megan. I'm so sorry for everything." She didn't reply right away. Instead, she shifted her weight, her gaze briefly flickering to the side. For a long moment, we just stood there in silence, the tension palpable between us. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do, but I took a step forward, just a small one. "Megan, I never meant for any of this to happen," I said, my voice shaking. "I never meant to hurt you. I should have told you everything from the start. I should have been honest with you. I should have never let him." "Megan," she cut me off, her voice steadier now, though still raw. She looked up at me, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sadness and clarity. "I believe you." The words hit me like a wave, overwhelming and unexpected. For the first time in weeks, I felt a shift. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something, and that something felt like the first step back toward her. She let out a deep breath, her gaze softening as she looked down at the grocery items in her hands, then back at me. "But it doesn't change the fact that I don't know what to do with all of this. I don't know how to go back to the way things were." "I understand," I said quietly, my heart sinking with her words. "I don't want to rush you. I just want to make things right, however long it takes." We stood there for a long while, neither of us saying anything else. It wasn't the grand reconciliation I had imagined, but it was enough. She didn't walk away. She didn't slam the door in my face. She just stood there, with me, for the first time since everything had fallen apart. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like there might be a way out of this darkness. Maybe the damage couldn't be fully undone, but this moment, this brief, fragile moment, felt like the first crack in the wall I had built between us. I don't know if we can ever go back, Lauren, Megan said quietly, her voice hesitant. But maybe we can start again, slowly, one step at a time. The weight on my chest lifted just a little, and I nodded, feeling both relieved and heartbroken. I didn't expect everything to be fixed right then, but this was the turning point I had been waiting for. Megan wasn't closing the door on me. She was just taking a step back to process everything, to heal in her own time. "I'll wait," I said softly, my voice full of sincerity. "Whenever you're ready." She nodded, and with the final glance, she turned and walked toward the exit. I stayed where I was for a few moments, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. It wasn't the end, but it was a beginning, a painful, uncertain beginning. The weeks after that brief encounter in the grocery store were a whirlwind of emotions: hope, confusion, and, strangely, relief. Megan and I weren't back to where we had been, but we had taken a small step toward rebuilding what we'd lost. She started texting me again, little by little, but there were still walls between us, and I knew they wouldn't come down easily. She was still hurt, still betrayed by both Russell and me, and I had no illusions that everything would just fall back into place. But at least there was communication again, and that was something I had desperately needed. Meanwhile, the shadow of Russell's manipulation still hung over me. He hadn't completely disappeared from my life, not yet. Even as Megan and I started to find our way back to each other, Russell's presence continued to haunt me. His messages, his attempts to reach out, his constant insistence that he hadn't meant any harm, it was all part of the same twisted game he had been playing from the start. And the worst part? It wasn't just me he was affecting now. He had also begun to spread rumors. It started slowly, just a few whispers among people we knew, mutual friends who had started asking questions. Was I really over Russell? Had I been seeing him behind Megan's back? The rumors, though unsubstantiated, began to spread like wildfire. People who had never even met Russell now had their own stories, their own versions of the truth. I received a call one day from Trish, Megan's close friend. "Lauren," she said, her voice heavy with concern, "I need you to hear something. Someone from our group just told me that Russell's been telling people you and he are seeing each other, that you've been having an affair behind Megan's back." The words struck me like a punch. My stomach twisted in knots. I had tried to cut Russell off, tried to block him, to distance myself from him, but somehow he was still causing chaos. He had woven this narrative in which I was the villain, the one who had wronged Megan, and it was spreading. "I don't know what to say," I told Trish, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me. "I haven't even spoken to him. He's the one who's been sending these messages, making up stories, but now it's like I'm the one being accused of something I never did." Trish didn't say anything at first, but I could hear her breathing, and I knew she understood. Megan's friends were caught in the middle too, and I hated that I had dragged them into this mess. But at the same time, I couldn't just let these lies continue unchecked. I immediately contacted Megan, telling her about the rumors I'd heard, trying to make it clear that this was all Russell's doing, his manipulation spreading in the most insidious way. I sent her screenshots of the messages, proof that I hadn't been involved with Russell in any way, but the damage had already been done. Megan's response was delayed, as it always had been lately. When she did text back, her words were filled with uncertainty and pain. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Lauren. I want to believe you, but everything feels so messed up. I need more time." That response crushed me. She wasn't angry, she wasn't accusing me, but there was something worse, something that cut deeper than any accusation. There was doubt, and doubt was the hardest thing to fight when it was already taking root. It didn't take long for Megan to pull away again, even further than before. She began to spend more time with Trish and other friends, trying to reclaim a part of herself that she felt had been lost in the chaos of her relationship with Russell. I could see it in the way she responded to my messages, the way she would always seem busy, always have an excuse to not meet. The trust had been broken between us, and no matter how much I wanted to rebuild it, I couldn't rush her healing. But it wasn't just the rumors from Russell. Megan's family also became involved, and that only made things more complicated. I had heard through Trish that Megan's parents had begun to question me, questioning my involvement in all of this. It felt like everyone had turned on me. Even those who had once been my friends, my support system, now seemed to doubt me. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me, and it was suffocating.
Russell's influence was still there, even from afar. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how far his manipulation had reached. It wasn't just Megan and me, it was everyone around us. And that realization made my blood run cold. He had succeeded in creating this chaos, in pulling me and Megan apart, all while playing the victim. He was still controlling everything from the shadows, even though he wasn't physically present. As the weeks went on, things didn't get better. They got worse. Megan and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was awkward, forced, like we were strangers trying to remember what it had been like to trust each other. And the worst part? Russell was still out there, still playing his game, still manipulating the people in our lives. I realized that I couldn't wait for Megan to come around, to forgive me. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, caught between guilt, doubt, and Russell's constant interference. I had to make a choice. I had to move forward, even if Megan and I couldn't get back to where we had been. It was time for me to let go of the hope that things would magically go back to normal. The fallout had already happened. The trust was gone. The friendship I had once thought was unbreakable had been shattered, and I was standing amidst the wreckage, not sure what to salvage. But one thing was clear. I had to rebuild. Not with Megan, at least not right now, but with myself. I had lost my way in all of this, lost the person I used to be. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to find her again. It's been months since the fallout, since the moment I saw Megan walking away, a thin line of hope in her eyes, but no trust left in her heart. Things didn't magically get better. Life didn't hand me a neatly tied-up ending where everything was made right. There's no sweeping reconciliation, no dramatic apology that fixes everything. But maybe that's the lesson I had to learn. I spent a long time lost in my guilt, wondering if I'd ever be able to move on from the wreckage of my friendship with Megan. There were nights I couldn't sleep, thoughts swirling about how I could have done things differently. I kept asking myself, what if I had told her sooner? What if I had never answered Russell's messages? What if I had been stronger, more decisive? But eventually, I realized that dwelling on the what-ifs wouldn't change anything. What mattered now was how I chose to move forward. Megan and I haven't talked in a while, and I'm not sure when or if we'll ever speak again. That uncertainty lingers, but it no longer consumes me. I've come to terms with the fact that I can't control how she processes this. I can't undo what's been done. What I can do is work on myself, to be a better person, to learn from my mistakes, and to make choices that align with who I want to be moving forward. I've been working on rebuilding my life. I've started going to therapy, processing my own role in everything that happened. I've learned how to set boundaries and how to listen to my instincts. I've learned to trust myself again, to stop second-guessing my every move. But the biggest lesson, the one that has stuck with me the most, is this. People's actions speak louder than their intentions. It doesn't matter how good my intentions were if my actions caused harm. It doesn't matter how much I meant to help if my decisions led to hurting someone I cared about. In the quiet aftermath, I've started to heal. It's not perfect and it's not fast, but it's real. I've reconnected with friends who understand me, people who remind me of the person I used to be before everything spiraled. I've found new passions, new places to go, and new people to meet. And I've learned that sometimes you have to walk away from the people you love in order to love yourself again. As for Russell, he disappeared from my life for good. Maybe he finally moved on, or maybe the weight of his lies became too heavy for even him to carry. I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. I've stopped allowing him to take up space in my head, stopped letting his manipulations control the narrative of my life. He won't get the satisfaction of knowing how much he hurt me or how much he destroyed. Megan might never be a part of my life again, but I will always remember the good moments we shared. I'll hold on to the memory of the laughter, the late-night talks, the inside jokes that made me feel like I wasn't alone in this world. I'll carry those with me, as painful as they may be. The truth is, life doesn't always give you the closure you crave. It doesn't always give you the neat, tidy ending you expect. Sometimes the only thing you can do is heal in your own way, learn the lessons you need to learn, and take the next step forward, even if it's alone. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all I need right now.